Good evening, everybody. My name is Tammy Tuckey, and welcome to the I can't even talk today. Welcome to the Tammy Tuckey Show. It's really great to see all of you. I know a lot of you followed along while I was in California for the Disney D23 Expo in September. And as I always say, going to the Disney parks, whether it's in Walt Disney World or Disneyland, you're always able to encounter special, unique moments at the parks with the cast members themselves. So while coming in one evening to the Grand Californian Hotel, which I was lucky to stay at during that weekend, I had a little special moment with somebody who's going to be our guest tonight, and I thought I'd play that clip with you guys for you guys first. So here's this clip. So I'd like to welcome musician Deborah Johnson to the show. Welcome, Deborah.
Oh, thank you. It's a pleasure being here. And I just watched that little video and I thought, well, I'm not in black right now. I'm in a different color.
You're bright colors. We're both bright colors tonight. Both pink.
Yes. Yes, very appropriate. It's going to be a new year here.
Yes, nice and bright and happy and exciting. And
Right.
I really can't believe that's been like 3 months since we last saw each other. That was our first time meeting. So
I can't
believe it's so fast.
Yes, time flies. It really does, especially around the holidays. So it's a pleasure being here. Thank you, Tammy.
Oh my gosh, thank you for being here. And one of my first questions is because you're so talented at playing the piano. It was wonderful coming in and just hearing you get to play all different types of Disney songs and some Broadway. You played some Memory from Andrew Lloyd Webber, which I loved. But, starting as a musician, when did you kind of find that you had like a knack for playing the piano or just music in general?
Well, I started piano when I was 9.5. The half was really important, at that stage of life. And I think, I had this desire to start, first of all, it wasn't something that was forced upon me. And I figured out that it was something I loved. I not only am now trained as a concert pianist and a vocalist. I've done a lot of vocal work and recording that way. But I also have an ear. So being able to pick things up, and that's why the composer part comes out so much too. So you can hear, sort of different melodies and hear what needs to happen in a song and writing it out. And crafting it. So yeah, I figured out young, this is pretty much what I wanted to do. I thought I wanted to go into teaching, and I have done teaching. Actually, I started teaching when I was 13. And I didn't want to pull weeds for my money or babysit the 5 kids next door. So I started teaching the kids in the neighborhood and their parents. So that's always been all the way through, and got a secondary credential, and I've taught every level through graduate school. But that's not been something I've mostly pursued. I've mostly pursued composing, creating, performing, and all of that. But I've taught a lot because I've raised a family. That was a big answer, Tammy. Thank you for letting me answer all of that.
No, I'm genuinely curious because for me, I can't read music. But I can hear it. I learn it through just repetition, and I know when I'm hitting the right notes, and I know when I'm off. So that was actually going to be my other question: was were you somebody who picked it up hearing wise first, and then you learned how to read the music, or was it the opposite?
Well, my teacher made me learn to read music, but I didn't start studying classically, and the piano at least, until high school. And I started studying with a teacher, strict classical teacher, wonderful teacher in my area. She was like one of the first concert pianists to play in communist Russia. And she, toured and just wonderful. But she almost dropped me as a student because I wasn't just reading the notes on the page, because I was adding all of these things to Bach. And she said, no, you can't do that. And she just didn't recognize the gift, I guess. No, she did actually. So, but I did learn to read right along, and it's a great skill to have. And it's important, I think, to be able to do that combination. And the reading also, as you find in your education for kids, that's why I believe it's music education is so important for kids, because it helps with that spatial recognition. It helps with the coordination, especially in piano, to be able to do other instruments as well. But it really helps with a lot of those skills and their actual reading skills. So if, you don't take the music out of schools, don't take it out of their education. It's such a wonderful gift for them. And so too bad you didn't have that from the very beginning. It's not necessary to do music, though. If you have an ear and you do have a good ear, you have you were right on pitch when you sang. That's great, and I'm pretty picky. So, but it's great to have an ear.
Wait, actually, Izzo just wrote a comment. This is somebody who's watching live. I mostly have to read the music. I can do a little by ear, but it's definitely not a strength. # jealous.
Yes, there's a lot of people. In fact, I have been approached by a lot, because I've taught for so many years, into how to use improvisation. And if students aren't learning like the chords right along with it, and how to use those and how to hear those in different keys, that can be a detriment to be able to add that later, especially classically trained, because there are a lot of wonderful, wonderful musicians that are classically trained, and they could play things that I couldn't, but they couldn't hear, and they couldn't add the other things too. But if you do that at the same time, at least you have a chance to be able to enjoy even a whole other side of music.
And when you said that story about your teacher not wanting you to add the other notes, it reminded me of the Barbra Streisand story of when she was recording and they did the same thing to her. They're like, you can't add those singing notes. You know what I mean? So
yeah, but she's Barbra Streisand.
Well, yeah, that's true. But you're Deborah Johnson, so
that's right. Yeah, it was really pretty funny. But I mean, she was very strict in classical music. And when you're training, you need to be able to, because there's so many technical things that you can learn from the classics, definitely.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. My dad's in the chat. He says, you are better than me. I cannot read music well at all. He's one that plays it by ear too. I wish I could play by ear. That would be my dream, just to be able to do that. But I find it so interesting, different musicians' backgrounds, because it seems like everybody takes inspiration from something at some point or another. But is there a certain type of music that draws you in as a performer?
I'm asked so much, what's your favorite music? What is I really, and there's no one type of music that is just, sticking out to me. There were a bunch of us musicians that thought rap would never survive, but of course it has, and in all sorts of different forms, and it's very fun. But the things that I like classically, I'm very drawn to the Impressionist. Composers like the Debussy's, but of course I love the brilliance with Mozart and with Beethoven and the Romantics. I love that. As far as pop music, I'll date myself a little bit, but I mean, I was so attracted to the Elton John and to Carole King and some of the Billy Joel's, the pianist vocalists. And it's like, I can do that. I can do that. And that's, why I've worked for so many years as a musician. And it's been so much fun. And my beginning piano teacher, first starting out, she didn't train me classically. In fact, at the point where she knew I needed to train classically is where she suggested I change teachers. But she taught me right away to start singing as well. And that was such a gift to me too, because it trains your ear at the same time. And also there's a skill to be able to sing and play at the same time and just keep it seamless. And so, and it's helped me a lot of different areas. I do a lot of speaking now and, video work, and to be able to have that sort of multitask concentration to really focus on your audience and not just worry about, what's going on right in front of you is that definite skill.
I would have to say, since I started just the video portion of doing this podcast, you get the live comments, and that's what I'm like,
right.
There's several things going on. So I know what
yes.
you mean, trying to multitask, especially. And just a reminder for those who are watching, you are more than welcome to write a question in our YouTube chat, and we could bring it up on the screen and have Deborah answer it if you have a question for her. I know a lot of people have been asking, especially when I've been sharing that we're going to have this conversation. So you've been working at Disneyland. When did you first start? Like, what was the process of auditioning and being a part of working there?
I'll have to probably look at my old contracts to see how many years I've gone. I always say, it's probably about 25 years. And
wow,
I never went in. Yeah, I've never went in for an audition. And it's so funny because people think, you do Disney. And I've loved it. It's a great organization, but it wasn't always the biggest things. I've done huge arenas. I've done headline shows. I've done, entertaining in a lot of other places. But I always did Disney too, because I put myself on as a sub. So I'm one of the top subs, especially at the Grand and some of the other places. And I've worked with a couple of friends, but it was all on referral. In fact, somebody, one of my friends, she came to see me play and she said, I need a sub. Would you sub in? And that was it. And then I played there for a while. And then there was one day that, I was playing, and one of the cast members, as they say, came up to me and says, you're not supposed to play on the piano. We don't allow that here. We don't allow guests to play. And I said, I'm not a guest. I work here. And he had never seen me before, but they had never given me a name tag. So, anyway, the manager immediately got me a name tag.
Oh my gosh.
But I had gone in for years, but I didn't need it. I had my ID going in and just showed up for the job like a normal other little gig. So, but it's an absolute pleasure because I love the atmosphere, and what you do is create an atmosphere for people, a happy place. And so, and I've always enjoyed that. And it's a fun place to be. And yeah, as long as, they keep wanting us as we gracefully grow older, doing what we're doing, but, we do a great job. So it's kind of fun.
It adds a special touch, especially when you're walking into the Grand Californian Hotel. For those who have never been to Disney World and you've been to Walt Disney World, the Wilderness Lodge is very similar to the Grand Californian. And I don't think we in Walt Disney World get as many musicians playing in the hotel lobbies as we would like. I know the Grand Floridian gets their own musician and their own piano. So it's just really nice to come in, and especially when you're exhausted from the airport and you just hear some Disney music and you're like, okay, I made it. Let's do this. And it's just so perfect. That ambiance is like the best feeling in the world. And especially when I was coming back, you guys run pretty late sometimes. So I was coming back late from the expo, and I think that's when I caught you. And I was exhausted. My voice was kind of shot. So I was like, I just want to come over and hear you. Because Hunchback is one of my favorite Disney scores. I was like, I'm going over right now, pulling out my phone just to record it for me. But of course, I asked Deborah if I could play it tonight. But I was just recording it for myself because I was like, I want to capture this moment, So
it was really fun. And we don't usually encourage everyone to sing. You did a great job. And, just then everybody and their dog. Yes, I know. Everybody and their dog wants to sing or play, and so they have to hold that as pretty strict. But it's always, a pleasure being there. But you get those people that kind of sneak it in. And, but it's just great to create the atmosphere. And it's exactly what I've done for years in raising a family and creating a home. You create an atmosphere where people can come and visit. It's being hospitable. And that's kind of what your musicians do at most any place, whether it's another private gig or whatever you're doing, or you're inviting people in to hear you with a messaging, with a speech or whatever. There's an atmosphere that you create to help people feel comfortable, to help people be relaxed. And so, and that lobby, I love being there at the Grand because I love that piano, first of all. It's just a great piano. And for us that have played for so many years, it's just like swimming. It's relaxing. You can have full-on conversations with people while you're playing, which the women do a little easier than men, by the way. But we're able to do that multitask. But it's really a pleasure, to be there and just to create that atmosphere. And I think with almost anything anybody does, that it's an important part of our businesses, to create an atmosphere where people want to show up and they want to learn and to grow and, be a person, you can be yourself.
I one of the things that I loved that you've been kind of picking and choosing different Disney songs, but then when people come up to you, because I heard a couple people ask for certain things, you kind of go right into it, which is wonderful too. You know how to go, and that was going to be my next question is, does Disney ask you for a set list of songs you must know or must have in your repertoire, or?
They're actually not supposed to, unless it's a show. And we're not a show when I play events like that. Now, when I've done special events, it's different. But in something like the Grand California or playing at one of the hotels or whatever, we get to play really what we want, but mostly what people want when they come to Disney. They're going to want Disney songs is what they want. And I don't know if you were there during that time. I can't even remember now, a couple months, because I was subbing quite a bit at the beginning, like at the middle of the year, and we had the whole Star Wars display. So it was huge. Yes, it was huge. The big convention. There were so many people. You should see the costumes, and it was, they were there, and so they suggested, because people were going to want to know those themes, and so every single set I would play the Star Wars theme, and I'd make it interesting for me. I'd play it in a number of different keys, different styles, and go into the cantina and do some other things, and just kind of melody and do all of the stuff around it and just make it kind of fun. And then go into the other songs. And usually one of my strengths is just I can string everything together and then come back to it and make it a big medley. And so it created a really happy place. People go, oh, wow. And they're looking at this huge display for Star Wars. And Disney does this so well. When it's they did it Christmas, they do the same thing. They do a big gingerbread house. Everything is baked. Well, they had a huge display for Star Wars that was all baked. And they tell you how much flour and how much sugar and how much everything that they use. And it's fascinating. And it's a life-size, huge model that they have there that they've spent all of this time and effort on. So it just creates this fun atmosphere. And even though, you hear about this a lot with entertainers, it's like, how many years if I had to do that same song, You've Got a Friend, James Taylor, do you have to do it every single concert? But that's what people come to hear. And so they want to hear, when there's a theme, they want to hear that. So that, and you're creating a happy place again. So we may be totally sick of doing that song, but
the audience wants it.
Do it in a different key, do it in a different style, just, kind of bring it back up again. So but it
says Tammy the Outlaw singing where she shouldn't. Sorry.
Yes.
Yeah. I was doing it quietly because I didn't want to I didn't want to get in trouble. So,
well, and it was kind of amazing when you did ask permission. I said, I can't really specifically, you have to have the copyright permission for doing stuff like this, because I'm usually pretty careful, especially with Disney songs. But you would record it on your phone, and there's a lot of people that are just going to post that. But I was kind of amazed how well. So. Yes. Well, I'm kind of amazed that it turned out as clear, because I didn't even know you were recording, first of all. And second, and it's fine. I mean, I don't usually record anything because I'm under a different contract. But the guests they do it all the time, and we find these videos everywhere. But it really, the sound turned out really very clear, especially of your voice.
Nice. It worked out really nice. I didn't know because it was pretty loud in the lobby, and then I was just going through Instagram seeing if there's other videos of you and the whole other team.
Right.
And it's so much fun because people are loving what you're doing and just keep posting.
Yeah.
So
and I don't always look at those. So thank you. You can send me the links later.
I will. I have to go back. I was like looking at them that night. I was like, oh, what else is she playing? Oh, hi there. Fantastic. Thanks for joining us tonight. We appreciate that you're here. Izzo says they also love the Star Wars medley. Did you ever do the Hans and Princess theme? That's like one of my favorites.
Yeah, I don't think I brought that one up. So, no, that is fun. Yeah. And there's sometimes things like this that when you talk about an ear, you're thinking, this person wants to hear this song. Let's see if I can remember a little bit of the melody. And so you can bring it back the next set because you can remember part of that melody. And that's all you really need to do. But, there's so much music out there. And,
it's hard.
I never. Yeah, I know. I usually, people say you never have music in front of you. Well, it's in here. I always tell my kids at some point, I'll probably lose part of my mental facility. Hopefully not. But if I do, the music will never go away. I'll never quit playing. It's just that's the last thing to go with Alzheimer's. But hopefully I won't ever get there. But, you never know. But music is
living home I work at. Music is the key. Like so many people might not be cognitively there, but when you play music, they knew the lyrics, or sometimes they'll just go out to the piano and play. And you're like,
yes,
wow, I didn't know you played.
Yeah, it's really amazing because it's the part of the brainstem. I did a little book on this called Music for Kids, but I studied why it is so important for kids. But it's one of the first parts of the brain that's developed in the brainstem is that recognition of like the music. And it's the last thing to go with Alzheimer's too. So it stays that part of the brain. And it's fascinating with the myelin sheath and all of that with that sort of repetition. And that's what stays. So it's an encouragement to all of us to do, to keep music in your life. Yes,
absolutely. No matter what you do, you can only sing in the shower if you don't want to sing in public. So
that's right. That's right.
Jantastic says there is a certain way a piano sounds and feels live in person rather than recorded. That's absolutely true. That's why you got to go see Deborah.
Yes. It's the ambiance of the room and the acoustics and how it fills a room. It's the difference between an electronic and an acoustic as well, because I've used both, of course, for many years, but an acoustic, when I'm on, my Blutner Grand in my living room, and I can fill that room with that sound. And then I go to an electronic, which is great. I mean, I've used electronics even in large engagements, but there's a difference in filling that room with that full on, the overtones that happen with that acoustic piano. So exactly right.
And my dad was really impressed with you. His question is, do you play any other instruments?
I'm asked that one too. I play instruments on the computer. So yes, no, I am not. I've arranged. I was my sister's free accompanist. She was a professional violinist. I had a grandmother actually come over from Italy, played in Carnegie Hall when she was 16, violin and mandolin, and graduated from New York Conservatory of Music. But then she had a dozen kids and never played again, but in an arranged marriage. But I love other instruments and I can write for them, but I am not proficient on them. And so, I've had to take a certain number of instruments when I was, getting all of my college degree and that sort of thing. But I was really bad. And, to really focus on other instruments.
For other instruments is very, that's another talent in of itself. You know what I mean? It seems so hard.
Well, and writing, there's a certain number of things that I've written for them that I'm more familiar with. But if I'm really going to do a full on, now I've done this for albums too. I've written for horns, I've written for strings, I've worked, rhythm section, and especially rhythm sections I've written a lot for. But there are people that do this like major and with and I'd rather hire them at this point in my life. If I'm going to do another project, I'm not really planning. I might do another project. I don't know. But music project, I've done a lot of them. And so it depends in what's ahead. And I have a great producer I've worked with, and, and there's a lot of stuff you can do in the studio. So if I can write the original and then kind of let it go after that is the best use of my time and of my expertise as well.
Are there any songs that are off limits because of maybe an incident that has happened in the past? Because I was actually shocked when I walked in and the player piano by itself, before anybody was coming to perform, was playing Hellfire. And I went, in the lobby, I love it. You know what I mean? But is there anything you cannot play?
They've never said anything, but I don't usually push the limits too much because I don't know the song Hellfire, so I'm not sure.
I would never ask somebody to play, but I was just like, the player piano has like a pre-recorded version of it. I'm like, what is happening? I love it.
Yeah, well, that's interesting to know.
So perfect.
That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, I have kind of my repertoire that I know, and but I've never been asked not to play something specific. And usually it's very tasteful, and there's so much music, and they love it though. They like the variety. So if I go into a classical piece, or if I play like Clair de Lune, or if I play for Elise, or I do some other pieces like in between, brought back Rhapsody in Blue. I play a little bit of that, and as well as, so it's a little bit of the classics, as well as some Elton John, and then the Disney tunes, and all. People seem to love that sort of variety. It doesn't matter what type of gig I have done. They like that sort of variety and the tempo changes. So, but they've never asked me not to do something, but I've never really, pushed the limits that way either. And I've never even thought about it because, why? So,
what's the most obscure Disney song in your repertoire?
Oh, I don't know. I'd have to go through my list. What's obscure anymore? I mean, I've been asked to do, sometimes I will learn something really fast just because it's popular then. And so I probably can't even tell you what that is right now, because now it's gone. So
there's at the door. I'm sure it keeps being asked.
If there's something specific, but sometimes I don't really bother to learn trendy things, and I'm not there all that much. Sometimes, I'm there, a couple days in January now. I'm there, some days in February, and so and there's certain times that I've been there more. So those months, I think that you were there, I was there, maybe. There were some 4 or 5 days in rows of couple runs that they needed me. So it depends on how much, because I do so many other things. I'm just finishing another book, and there's a lot of other things I'm doing. So I'm not working on, adding a lot of new repertoire, because first of all, if it's a new movie out, my friend Jamie, that of course you said you can know, she'll tell me about, I learned this song for it. And I thought, well, maybe I should, listen to that melody, so I can play a little bit of it as someone comes in. But a lot of times people don't even ask. So they just want the standards, You never know. I mean, when Frozen came out, oh my gosh, it was like every set. You knew when the little girls were coming up, that's what they were going to ask for. So, but you know what? I did a concert with a performing arts center with another colleague of mine. We did a double piano show. It's called Double Grande. We had a great time. And we used to do a Disney medley. And so we added in the Frozen, a little bit of the Frozen. And it was like, because we did an educational show, it was like we were rock stars. The kids went bonkers. And this was up north in California. And it was like, it was, they went wild because it was just coming out. And so I was like, I was not prepared for that. It was like high schoolers were even cheering. They were cheering the whole thing. They were like, I don't know how many kids there, probably 400, 500 kids. And they were just cheering because they thought that was just the best thing, that we would come and do, that song. And of course we had done, some of the other standards from there,
but
Beauty and
they're
the
like, they're
Beast
not their generation's Disney film. Like, I would say
yeah,
if
but
you
a
had
whole
done
new world.
Lion
Yeah,
King
yeah,
in
right,
1994, you guys would have been like
right,
given the woo, but yeah, now
yeah.
it's so
But it was
interesting to see.
recent. Yeah, but
Yeah.
they still knew all the classics. They still knew all the other ones because they were always well loved. But when we got to that one, it was kind of amazing. But it was there was a period of time when it was really, really popular. You couldn't play it too much, and it was like, yeah, we were sick of it. But yeah, but I shouldn't say
Inside
that because
joke.
inside
But
joke.
Buck Chucker says, how does Deborah feel about the inclusion of electronic elements with traditional instruments?
I'm all for it.
There you
Yeah,
have it.
yeah. No, I mean, it makes it interesting. I've used a lot of electronics. I've let my producer, the producer I've worked with, especially because I've written musicals, and you can add so many electronic pieces of instruments that are electronic. Now, he's probably talking about maybe that sort of style, the electronic music of, whether it's kind of the style of electronic music. But you can use electronic instruments that are very realistic, and you have a lot of flexibility in full on, putting things together. So, but I'm all for adding that, whatever makes it kind of interesting. As long as, I think it's important though, as a songwriter, to don't take away from the actual song. And there was a little saying that I called him my piano pal, that we did these double pianos together. And he knew Roger Williams, the amazing pianist that had a number of Grammys. And we lost him a couple of years ago, but and he lived in LA, and he had this huge Indian in front of this house, like carved Indian. And he was looking out. And so Roger had asked my colleague, he had asked Wayland, he said, what do you think the Indian's looking for? And he said, I don't know. And Roger Williams said, he's looking for the melody. And that's what happens when we put so much electronic music or so much background that we forget. That's why the Disney songs are so popular, I think, is because there is a melody people can sing with. And that's what
it's like the traditional way of being able to join in. Like the Sherman Brothers are so classic, and I love their music. And now you have the Lopez's with Frozen. So there's this whole different change of how some of the songs sound, but they have that melody that is so key to being a part of it. Has anybody walked in your lobby and listen? Any famous people walked into the lobby and listened to you play the piano before that you've recognized?
Well, I did play for one of the Sherman Brothers at one point, and so I think I might have played Winnie the Pooh or something like that, or one of their Mary Poppins songs, or But it was very short, and and it's so funny, Tammy. I am not one. I don't like recognize people. Go, oh, who that is. I mean, I'm just like in my own little world, and then so somebody usually has to point it out to me that there's, oh, look who that is. So I think somebody did that, and they, or he might have come up to me. It was a long time ago now. He might have come up to me and introduced himself, and I thought, oh, okay,
hi,
that sort of thing. So I've never been totally starstruck, but probably because I'm never thinking about being starstruck. I just kind of do my own thing. We ran into
George Lucas twice a couple years ago.
Did you? Wow.
He was walking with his family. We didn't bother him. We were just like, it's George Lucas in the jeans, the classic jeans.
Isn't that funny though? But a lot of times I don't even recognize people because I'm not even looking for, or I guess I'm just not wired that way.
California is different though. I feel like Walt Disney World, we've been there for so many different years, and we've really never seen anybody famous there. But California, that place is hopping with a lot of people.
Well, because Hollywood's there, a lot of the movies, and a lot of people are usually, and a lot of times they have events there too. So where they have openings for Johnny Depp was there because he's some of the new, and I think Jamie played for that sort of event, but they have, the new movies that are coming out that Disney is promoting as well. So, sometimes you will get those people coming through. And I think there were some people coming through with the Star Wars that were popular, but I didn't recognize them. And people are in all these costumes. So I didn't know who it was. And so I guess I need somebody sitting by me and go, oh, that's that person. Yeah, I'm playing Star Wars for the 8th time. So
You're so used to it by now. You're like, okay. Isn't says the piano version of the Main Street Electrical Parade could be fun. I guess it could be called the Main Street Acoustical Parade.
Right. Yeah. And I played that before. Actually, we've had a lot of, for a wedding too. I've played that for a wedding. And there's a lot of different requests. Sometimes people, if they wanted it at their wedding, that's perfect. I played one of them were.
Do you have anybody from the East Coast go, hey, can you play some Epcot for us? Like Epcot music?
I've never had anybody ask for that. So one of the most unusual, this wasn't a Disney wedding, but they had asked me to play the Sting, da 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 da, that sort of thing as a recessional. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. But people have different favorite songs and theme from Forrest Gump, things like that. They just love the melodies. Wow. So yeah. And they're simple but classic.
And another question, what is your favorite musical?
Let's see. I love the classics again. And one of the most perfect musicals, of course, is My Fair Lady. And that's wonderful. They wrote 80 songs for that musical and then cut. So it's as a writer, it's a really good illustration of how you have to, as they call it, kill your babies, kill your songs that you love that may not be appropriate. That's a great one. Of course, I've loved the classics of like The Phantom, Mary Poppins, the actual musical versions are great. Disney always does a great job with them too. The Sound of Music. I love the ones with the great music. And Wicked was fun. And
love Wicked.
the ones with the music that's memorable. And I like good melody and good songs that you can walk away with. And what was happening with some of these musicals is like, what memorable song is there? What can I walk away singing? So and as a writer, you want to, that's what I wanted to do, is create songs that were memorable. But that's, those are some of my favorites. Again, I'm kind of a classic person with musicals. I don't know. It's just like a song. Like, what's your favorite song? I don't know if I can name my favorite song. Yeah, I can't. I really can't. There's just so many that are good, but I go to the classics. It's almost like the classics of classical literature and classical piano literature that you have. There are certain things they're all different styles. And so I like the different style. It keeps it interesting.
I love when we come out with like a new musical that everybody's like doesn't really like, and then a couple years later it becomes a classic. That's always something that I really, really enjoy, because I'm like, it maybe didn't do well, but then just because of the music itself, because that speaks to people. So
it does.
Something that goes on Broadway and leaves, but
yes, and sometimes they add to those as well. There's different versions, and so it may not become as popular until all of a sudden you see it and go, I don't remember that song. Oh, well, it was added. And so, I mean, even The Phantom has different versions. And then there's an older version, or the original version too, that was not Andrew Lloyd Webber. So there's a lot of, which totally different songs. So sometimes people don't know that, some of that is taken from other areas, or they've added to them and they become more popular. And of course, your staged version then is different than your recorded version sometimes too. So there's just and different staging. It depends on what permissions you have. Producers, and the producers have as well too.
Have you heard the Phantom song "Home"? I am home, da, 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 from like the other Phantom musical.
Yes, I have.
You're referencing.
Yeah, I have heard that, and I can't. bring it up for you right now, but I have heard some of the music from that original too. Yeah,
That one's so
definitely.
lush.
So,
Like, I feel like that's a
yeah,
song that you would probably love to play at some point.
yeah.
It's just so pretty, but
Well, and it depends on what is requested and how much, am I gonna, go ahead and learn some new. But some of those are just really easy to add in. So, but it depends if I remember them. I remember to add it in.
it's
So,
pretty. It's pretty. Well,
yeah.
Izzo says, "What's the weirdest, funniest gig you've ever had?"
Oh, now that's a good one too. Wow. Well, weirdest, funniest. You're making me think here. I've done so many different ones. Well, I do remember doing a bit in a show that I did the Minute Waltz, and I did the Barbra Streisand version, and there's a really funny little version of the Minute Waltz, and I was singing it. And what we did was put it at the end of the first act, and I was supposed to say, so don't go away, you all come back, we're going to come back. So, but what I did was I opened the window and I opened the curtain. I said, now everybody go away and we're going to come back. So I was like sending everybody like, we're not going to come back. Or I did something totally opposite and I had no idea I did it. And so, but everybody was laughing so hard. So that was kind of funny. Yeah, there's been some other like weddings that I've done. I've done so many different types of gigs, and this was a really high class one. And we're out by this huge, beautiful pool in front of the ocean. They've got the big tent, so we're all set up doing everything. And they had rented geese for the pool, and the geese got out and started chasing us. So we had to go find. I don't know. There's a lot of funny things. Yeah, the geese were chasing us. I had to go find a coordinator, say we can't do the music if the geese are chasing. They attack. Yeah, geese attack. So,
yes, they do. Yeah,
chased away the whole band. So yeah, there was, if I was going down memory lane, there would be a lot of those funny little things.
Are there any current musicians that you admire or they influence your performance style?
Any current ones? Wow. There are, current. I don't know if I'm up on as many current musicians, except for the writers. And I've been a Grammy voter for years. This year I didn't go into that, but I've been, so I listen to a lot of the independents, which I love. I have admired the ones that are still out there that I admire some of their songwriting are the Dolly Partons. She is amazing to me because she's been so prolific. And she's still, I'm going to sneeze here. I'm so sorry. We're on live stream.
Yeah, that's okay.
I'm feeling my allergies coming
live. That's the fun of it.
Yes, I know. Isn't that wonderful? So I'm trying not to sneeze into the microphone. But I've always admired her because of her song, just those skills. And I really admire the current artists that have had such longevity as well, because there's a lot of artists that are just so quick. Like Pink, she is, very talented. And, the Tony Bennett's and some of those that are the classics, I really enjoy probably the most. And I don't always, and some of the country artists, they're just great. I've always admired some of their ranges and what they can actually do, because on some of those songs, you don't know what they can actually do until they sing, stand in front of, a stadium and sing the national anthem, and you go, wow,
yes,
yeah,
you're
an
like,
amazing
wow,
range.
talent.
Yes. And you don't always see that. So those are the artists I really, really do appreciate. So when you're talking about current, I'm feeling kind of old right now because I'm not up with all of the really, really current.
Don't say that. No.
Yeah,
I'm so glad you mentioned Pink.
know.
She's from my hometown. So there you go.
Oh, really? I saw her at the Grammys, and it was amazing because she was doing her acrobatic things that she does. She was totally in tune, singing while she's doing this somersault on this, high wire thing. And I'm thinking, I was amazed. We had great seats. We could see just right there. We were in a balcony, but we could just see. And to me, there's such control, that breath control and everything else to be able to do something like that. Again, that's a multitasking that, that she was able to do. And I was very, very impressed with that. So yeah, there's a lot of great talent. Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's so interesting to see, because I remember her back in like when the year 2000 hit. It was like the get the party started, and now she's kind of like led this career where it's not just the punk rock and the pop. It's like a whole array of it, and she's developed her voice so much, and it's just wonderful to hear and see her. She's still touring. I'm like, you go, girl.
I know. It's, that to me, to be able to have that sort of longevity, you have to be able to reinvent your life and reinvent your style even. Yeah. And I mean, that applies to all of us. It doesn't matter what stage we're at. And I speak mostly to those at mid-career, halftime of life, and where you go, what's next? And, I always say, you retire, you die. You just, you want to keep going on some sort of purpose in your life. Otherwise, you lose hope. You lose, and that was a part of my latest book. And it was an allegory, but it was all about, you can't lose hope with this band of hope. I have one right here, this little yellow band that was such a part of her, the main character's life was a band of hope. She can't lose that hope. And that's what people do when they lose completely where their purpose is going. And so I love it when I see some of that reinvention and those that are pushing the limits, and that you can see all of that they have not given up. And if something's now, and plus it's interesting, it makes it, the creative part, that creative journey makes it really, really interesting.
Yeah, I that's another thing that I just love to talk to people about. What have they done after, their main career, when they've kind of like moved out of that and transitioned? So you have your own podcast called Halftime, Women at Halftime, excuse me.
Women at Halftime, yes.
That's specific. And you're also an author. So you've been, how long have you been working on your podcast?
At least a couple of years. I'm coming up to my 200th episode on my podcast. So I feel like it's still pretty young, but I just put it out once a week. This year, I'm starting to put out some bonus episodes, which is fun. So I have some stories and some other extra interviews that I'm doing, but my format is a little different. I had waited actually a year to start my podcast because I was losing both of my parents. And so and I was the president of a nonprofit. So our LA chapter of our National Speaking Association, I was president for a year. So I thought, I need to wait. I was ready to go. But my format is because I've been married to my husband, who we met on a blind date, by the way. But we've been married over 40 years, believe it or not. I know I feel very, I know I don't look nearly that old, but no, we have been for a long time. Yeah, but I bring him on once a month because he was a professional athlete and he's been in the business finance field. So in RIA, he owned his own business. So we talk about a lot of different things that are facing people at this time of their life. And then I do one interview a month, and then I speak a couple times a month. And now I'm going to start adding a few more interviews, and I write articles every week too. So that with that podcast, it's called Women at Halftime, but men listen to it too. It's very appropriate for anybody at mid-career, but it's easier to brand Women at Halftime. And I wrote a book called Women at Halftime as well several years ago, probably 3 years ago now. But yeah, so that's been really fun, and I'll be coming out with my 6th book. So I love it.
Look at you. Basically. And
yeah.
Where can we go to buy it? Or do we go to your website, or do you want us to go to Amazon?
You can go either place. I have a couple different websites that you can go, and I'll name those off. But everything's on Amazon as well. So you can always find me on Amazon. Now, there's a lot of Deborah Johnsons, by the way. There are a lot. When you do a search for a Deborah Johnson, you're going to find different authors, everybody. So you're going to find a lot of different people. So, but my websites, you can always find it there, and goalsforyourlife.com, all together, goalsforyourlife.com. and they'll be there. I have a lot of free things. In fact, I have a free webinar right now. If you do goalsforyourlife.com/DJ Works, just like a DJ Works. People try to buy that from me now. I've had DJ Works for a long, long time. That's who I am. It was Deborah Jean, then it was Deborah Johnson. So DJ Works. But that's the, you can find free material. You can find my books and, but I'm a lot of different places. And then, of course, Deborah Johnson speaker and DJ Works music. There we go. You can find a lot of different places for finding my books. So thank you for asking. Always, I don't do these just to promote, but it's really nice. People wonder how to get a hold of you. Yeah.
And I put some of the links, especially to your social media pages, in the show notes below. So if you guys want to check that out, you're more than welcome to. Izzo says, what a talented and interesting lady. I got to second that.
You know what? I love what I do and I never want to quit. So, I think it's great to have that purpose and things moving ahead. I work very hard, and I have worked in my business, and I help others do some of the same thing, but I've worked to be a little bit more automated so I can get away. And the last couple of days, after the holidays, we had 3 sons. And so we're, involved a little bit in their lives. Yes, yes, wonderful. And I'm very, very thankful. But at this point, I'm doing a little bit extra travel with my husband. I've traveled a lot for business, but I like to do that with my husband so I can automate some parts of my business. I do online training as well. I do a certain number of live events. Of course, I'll always probably do Disney till they kick me out, but they'll, that's great. I love doing that.
Don't say that.
Yeah, I don't think so. There's not a lot of people that do what we do. Yeah, well, there's not a lot of people that we do what we do. So yeah, but it's really fun. Sure. Those are fun gigs to do, as well as some of the speaking engagements. And I'm pretty selective because, the world changed when it shut down, and there's so many more options now. You can do a lot more things virtually and travel. I tell you what, what a mess it was with some of the airlines with everything over the Christmas holidays. Oh my goodness. And yeah, it hit us, a couple of our kids too. So that, the flexibility there and doing the travel you want to do. And sometimes it takes a little bit longer and all of that. So, life doesn't last forever. So you get to a certain point and there's priorities, and I'm big on your core values. And in fact, I added in even a chapter in this next book that's coming out, and it's called Stop Circling. It's talking about a roundabout, people in a roundabout forever. But yeah, it gives you the clues and all of the steps to get out of that endless roundabout. People stay in there a long time, or they won't go through multiple roundabouts. But I put in a chapter in that book specifically on core values, because when we know what we stand for in a number of different areas, it can be your professional life, but as well as your personal life, and also including your faith and your character, all of that is very important part of your life and what you're going to be doing. And people start thinking about that a lot more in like a next chapter, because now you're thinking, wow, boy, that went, it went fast. Just like the holidays went fast. When you look back, it's really weird how that happens. Sometimes, when you're at the beginning of it, you're thinking, no, it's going just fine. But I tell you, I remember my father telling me that, how it's getting faster and faster, like the train speeds up a little bit. So and just, true. That was very philosophical for some of you, I'm sure. So, but hey.
Just as a reminder, please check out, again, the links are in the show notes below, and you can always access them after this interview is done. I'm so glad we got to meet in person, because usually I don't get to meet my guests even ahead of time. So it's just really like a pleasure to meet you and to hear you play. And I can't wait to the next Disney Expo, because I'll probably see you and you'll be playing again, I'm sure.
Yes.
So I'll try to pull out a Sherman Brothers song I'd like to hear. I love from Happiest Millionaire. Oh no, the one and only genuine original family band that Louis Armstrong recorded was "About Time, About Time." It's like a romantic song. That's like my mom's and my favorite Sherman Brothers song. So
well, you'll have to email me and make sure I have it.
I'll email you. I'll be like, you might like this one.
Are you there? You might want to bring
version.
that. Okay.
But thank you guys all for watching. Everybody who's been watching, thank you for joining us this evening. If you'd like to hear more interviews and see some of the reunions we've been having on this channel, please subscribe and share the conversation on social media with your friends. You can continue the conversation with us. We're on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and you can find me on my website at tammytuckey.com. Thanks again, Deborah, for being on the show. It's such a pleasure. I want to start something new because we've done a full thing of interviews. I want to do a moment where we can actually just look at the camera and have screenshot moment for our banner. So let's take a screenshot. Ready? 1, 2, 3, smile. And thank you guys all for watching this entire year. I can't believe 2022 is over, and just the best to you, Deborah, on your 2023. Thank you for being my last interview of the year.
Oh, a pleasure. And you are a lot of fun. Your audience is very lucky to have you. So
I'm lucky to have them. So
yes.
Thank you guys again. See you all very soon. And remember, the dream that you wish will come true. Have a good evening, you guys. Happy New Year.